Yo, what is good, everybody? It is your boy, Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me, and I am back. This is part 2 of What If Deku had a Darkness Quirk. As always, if you enjoyed, please show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. Seems like you guys have enjoyed part 1, so here is part 2 for y'all. Yeah, I've been definitely recording these a little bit later than normal. So, yeah, you probably aren't going to get them at the normal time of like 12 o'clock. Probably getting them like at 5 p.m. PST or 5 p.m. or like 7 EST or Central Time or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember how it all goes. But if you guys still enjoy, make sure to show some love. Sorry that it's coming out a little bit late. But maybe you guys can watch it while you're studying, while you're doing something, or while you're about to go to bed, something like that. That's cool. But with that said, I don't want to waste much more of your time. I don't have much time to waste, so I want to get right into the what if. So let's get it. Izuku Midoriya and Ochaku Araka are going to take on Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida. These two will take on both Tenya Ida and Katsuki Bakugo in a heroes versus villains match. Now, how does it work? Well, Izuku and Ochaku are the heroes, and the other two are the villains. The villains protect a bomb that needs to be captured by the heroes. The heroes do not capture that bomb in a 5-minute period, then the villains win. Or, if the heroes are captured by the villains in some sort of way, the villains win as well. But Izuku has no intention of losing here, and for 5 minutes of preparation, he talks to Ochaku about what they should do. Immediately, he says that they can go one or two ways. He could expel basically all the darkness within his body, cover the entire area or cover the entire building, and enter said building, and it basically should be a free win. Or they can find the power supply, and if they find that power supply and cut it off, it will be very, very easy for him to basically go through what he needs to go through. In which Ochaku says that it seems like the power supply idea is a better one, so maybe they should do that. Izuku nods his head and says, I mean, it is more convenient, so why not? And that's exactly what they decide to do. Quickly, they try to locate where the power supply is, looking at different maps and stuff like that within the 5 minutes. And when the 5 minutes are over, they go in that direction, avoiding Bakugo and Tenya entirely. Bakugo wondering where the hell this guy is. But quickly, he would realize what they are doing because the lights would begin to flicker and then eventually turn off entirely. Tenya's thinking that it must have been some sort of power outage or glitch, but Bakugo himself knows that it's not. He knows that this was intentional, that there was a reason why they did this. Bakugo begins to use his explosions to light up the area, but he can't see a single thing. But he can feel the presence of somebody watching him, somebody creeping around. Izuku will be and is basically walking through the darkness undetected, and Bakugo continues to shoot explosions out in different areas looking for him. Eventually, though, he would land or shoot an explosion in the perfect spot, and he gets a glimpse of Izuku. And as he gets that glimpse, he would shoot another explosion, a giant one, trying to catch him. But then as that explosion goes off, the light would show that there is nobody there. This would freak Bakugo out, as he would get grabbed immediately dragged through the entirety of the room, slammed against the wall, and pulled throughout the entire room, getting scraped all over his body as he's dragged on the concrete or on like the floor that is a little bit, not the nicest thing in the world. He's dragged and smashed against the wall, and as he basically tries his best to stop this from happening, he shoots an explosion at Izuku again, but it's not actually Izuku standing there. No, it's not. It's actually Ochaku. He shoots an explosion at Ochaku that actually doesn't even hit her, but it surprises Bakugo, thinking that that's weird. How is he seeing her? It doesn't even make sense. How is he seeing her within the darkness? And Izuku, well, he has actually kind of extrapolated him a part of his own darkness and put it within Ochaku. In doing so, this allowed them to basically be within the darkness together and use it as some sort of a cloak. And while this is all occurring, while this is all happening, they would eventually mess with Bakugo so much that he would think that they are there the entire time. But this would lead to them leaving and heading off to where the bomb is currently located. eventually getting to said location and touching the bomb without anybody knowing. And Izuku, well, he would basically hear All Might say that it seems like, well, the hero team has won, but they can barely see him through the lens of the camera. And the camera itself, it actually seems to be, well, for one, extremely dark, but the camera itself, it's hard to pick up on all the darkness. It seems like Izuku being there makes the darkness even thicker, as if it's like some sort of kind of weird looking goo. I know it sounds odd, but it just more or less makes it so that it's so dark that it's like borderline pitch black, like you are looking at a blank screen. It's like impossible to really see, or at least borderline impossible to really see. And Izuku, well, he wins, and they obviously win the hero side of things. And Ochako thinks that was extremely impressive from Izuku. Like, she didn't even know he was able to do that. And, well, he would tell her, like, well, there's a lot of things he doesn't even know what he could possibly do. So there's probably a lot of more, or quite a bit more surprises to come very, very soon. Now, with all that said, though, Izuku and Ochako would win, obviously, the heroes versus villains, and All Might would congratulate them, telling them that they did a hell of a job, that they did a fantastic job about, like, you know, really approaching things practically and also approaching things to the best degree and utilizing their quirks in basically the most possible and also most beneficial ways they possibly could. And that's exactly what they did, utilizing, well, Izuku's quirk to its absolute peak of pinnacle or perfection in terms of the superpower that he has. Now, with all that said, all the rest of the class goes through their, you know, heroes versus villains training, eventually leading to them heading back to class the next day and talking to Aizawa about what they're going to do next. Aizawa informs them that they're actually going to the USJ, a rescue facility, a facility that will teach them how to basically rescue people and do different simulations on how to do certain things. Now, everyone is really excited for this, but the thing is, Izuku has a bad feeling, like a really bad feeling. He doesn't know what's happening or what's going on, but he feels like something is coming, as if there's something that they don't really know about. He doesn't know what that truly means and what this pit in his stomach really is, but it must be something very, very bad. And quickly, when they all arrive and they all talk to Pro Hero 13, they would realize what that something bad is, and that something bad is the arrival of the League of Villains. The League of Villains would come surging out of nowhere. Through portal after portal, villains would scour the entirety of the USJ, and all of the people there would panic. Aizawa, though, obviously not panicking. Same thing with Pro Hero 13. She would be told to protect the students. But Izuku, well, all he can think about is the fact that he knew this was coming. He doesn't know how he did. He doesn't know why he did, but he had a feeling. He could feel it in his gut that this was going to happen. And he tries his best to actually tell Aizawa that he can help, he can do something, but Aizawa tells him, no, don't even think about it. And Izuku is just thinking like he could do something, he could help, and he tries to basically figure something out, but nothing necessarily is working. And before he can do anything, they're teleported to a new area, and Izuku is thrown into a giant, basically a pit of water, or a lake of some sort. Now, Asui would save him from any harm in general by, these fish-like villains, and Asui would get him out of there onto a bit of a ship, and which would be beneficial, because they're all together, him, Mineta, and also Asui, so they can come up with some sort of idea on what to do. And this is perfect because they do come up with some sort of idea. He would basically tell them that he can kind of stretch them across the area with some sort of, like dark type of like bridge of some sorts. Now, it is a little bit inconvenient because he's going to use a lot of his bundled up darkness that is kind of absorbed within his body, and he's a little worried that he's going to need that in the long run. but he has an idea that may or may not help them massively or may not go really wrong. And Asui looks at him and looks at Mineta and says, well, it's worth a shot. Let's do it. In which they would be able to get across this giant lake and be in some sort of a safe area. Izuku would immediately run toward the giant clump of people, and he tells Pro Hero 13 that they need to shut off the lights. They need to somehow shut off all of these like lights, or shut off all of these electronics, and try to make as much darkness as possible. In which she would say that it's going to be really difficult, but they can do it because some of the lights and electronics are actually nearby. In which Izuku tells her that if they do that, they can really help a lot of people, and they can change all of this rapidly into their favor. In which she asks what is he expecting to do, what does he think about doing or thinking about doing, in which she eventually would hear what he thinks or why he wants to do it, and she says, no, that's a crazy idea. In which Tokiyami would walk up and actually say that is an insane idea, but one that might work, because Dark Shadow thrives in the darkness and becomes, well, borderline unstoppable, and also, well, he won't be able to stop him in general when he starts freaking out and going crazy. But of course, Izuku tells him that that's also part of his plan, to not worry, that he has it under control, trust him. In which Kaminari would say that he could get to wherever these lights are and overload it. Trust him, he can handle it. In which that's exactly what they're going to do. He goes out of his way to overload the system while everyone is basically fighting for their lives. Luckily enough, just as Aizawa finishes and defeats some of the villains, or at least a mass majority of them, he would see that the lights begin to flicker, and eventually most of them are shut off. Now, it's not complete darkness, not complete and utter darkness, but the light is only coming from the outside. Windows, are giving some sort of light, but even some of the students are closing them. Izuku could hear the kind of growls and the screams of Dark Shadow, as Dark Shadow is basically becoming larger and in size and is about to start attacking things. Izuku can feel the darkness in the area, and he becomes comfortable once again, dashing towards Tokiyami, and he immediately puts a hand on Dark Shadow. As he does, Dark Shadow begins to calm, but still has that insane power that is bolstering through him, and he tells Tokiyami to follow his lead. Izuku would begin to dash through the darkness as if he's just slithering like a snake through it all, as if he's completely in control, as if he's showing up place to place without anybody even noticing. He knocks out villain after villain all around the USJ, and with the help of Dark Shadow and Tokiyami, they fly around basically, and they begin to knock out and basically decimate every villain that is left over, eventually leading them back to Shigaraki, the Nomu, and also Kurogiri. Kurogiri believes that whatever is happening, they have to get it done fast because it seems like they're losing the advantage. Shigaraki says they're not leaving without the end and the death of All Might, and Izuku tells them that they better leave now or they will be consumed by the darkness, in which immediately this would open the eyes of Shigaraki, open them wide, thinking that whatever this kid has within him, it might be useful to them all. In which immediately though, Izuku would attack Shigaraki and also Kurogiri, with the Nomu trying to help them. The Nomu would jump in front of Shigaraki, taking the hit from a boosted up and honestly extremely powerful Dark Shadow, and also an absolutely insanely powerful Izuku Midoriya. The Nomu would take the blow and get sent flying toward the wall, as Shigaraki would be in a complete state of panic, especially when he looks to see All Might arriving as they speak. This is not what they were prepared for, so they need to get the hell out of there. Kurogiri is about to open a portal, but he's unable to do so. The darkness that surrounds them becomes thicker and thicker, so much so that they can barely even breathe. They don't know what's happening, what's going on, but it feels like the air is thinning, and they begin to absolutely gasp for air. Izuku begins to his all-out assault on Shigaraki and Kurogiri, with the Nomu unable to take anything or any advice or any kind of orders from Shigaraki. Izuku would lay blow after blow, knocking out Shigaraki and leading to Kurogiri being overwhelmed and put down on the ground by Dark Shadow. This, with Tokiyami, everybody realizes quickly that the villains are on the ground, and All Might comes spiraling through with the help of Shigaraki, or with the help of, Izuku and also Tokiyami. They would take down the Nomu quickly and launch him out of the USJ, creating a giant hole that would ensue make a ton of light come throughout the entirety of the USJ. The lights would then spring on as Izuku would basically stop, and also Dark Shadow would calm down entirely. Izuku would look at Tokiyami and nod his head, saying that it was a pleasure, and it was a pleasure with Dark Shadow as well. Dark Shadow tells Tokiyami that he's never felt something like that before. That was weird. It was odd. He felt powerful, but it was as if they were somewhat in control. That he wasn't, some insane lunatic that wanted to just tear up everything. He was actually somewhat able to do things and be in control, even in that crazed state. In which Izuku nods his head and smiles and says that at least someone else is here to enjoy the darkness and embrace it with him. Because there's something about being out in the sun all the time that he just isn't a big fan of. He laughs a bit as all these pro heroes would arrive, and they would cuff Kurogiri, Shigaraki, and get all of these villains into custody. Before you know it, a lot of people are questioning what the hell Izuku can truly do. How was he able to do that? What can he actually do? What was this insane just display of power that he just showed? Well, Izuku doesn't give away secrets like that, but it definitely was beneficial to shutting down everything that the League of Villains were trying to do, and Izuku was able to be a massive component of taking them down entirely. Now, with that said, they get a bit of a 3-day kind of leeway or 3-day vacation that they kind of take off some time to relax, to reconvene and stuff like that. And it would lead to them actually going on to the UA Sports Festival, in which Izuku, well, he's excited for. He's excited to see what he can do, even if it's in probably one of the worst environments he possibly can be in. And it's quickly made apparent when he has to, well, use quite a bit of his power, especially use quite a bit of his power in this in the obstacle course race. He for the most part runs through the obstacle course race normally, but to get over certain obstacles, he definitely uses the stored up darkness, and it allows him to basically glide across certain areas and even glide across the giant field of mines. But it doesn't mean he's going to get first place by any means. He actually ends up getting about 6th or 7th, and he uses a little bit of his stored up power, which is definitely not good, because he's going to need it with this cavalry battle. The cavalry battle is going to be multiple people, him and 3 others, teaming up, and they're going to basically have headbands, and they're going to have to defend and also take headbands as well. So Izuku decides that he'll have Ochako on his team for one, but he wants Tokiyami as well, being that they actually work really well together. And Izuku can basically boost up his powers even without having a surrounding darkness around them. And on top of that, Izuku actually decides to let Mei Hatsume, someone who is a kind of inventor / support hero, join in as well. And it would have been or ends up being a really good choice, because Izuku realizes that this right here was a great idea, because Dark Shadow himself is able to fend off a ton of the oncoming or the coming onslaughts from a lot of these people with headbands and a lot of these people in the cavalry battle. But also on top of that, Izuku is able to basically utilize some of his darkness powers to fend off other people, slip out of certain areas, and get out of certain places when he needs to as well. Eventually gaining a couple headbands and keeping a lot of their own, and Izuku would be able to, on really the coattails of Dark Shadow, would actually be able to go on to the next round. Now, they wouldn't be like first place or anything, but they would be in the place where it would allow them to get on to that next round, which is, of course, what they want to do. But Izuku would quickly realize that this next round isn't something he was prepared for, because before he actually faces off with Shinso, he unfortunately doesn't get the warning from one of his classmates, because, well, a lot of people are kind of scared of him still. Very few people really like him in terms of a person, and they fear him quite a bit. So when he faces off with Shinso, he has no idea that Shinso can mind control him or brainwash him. So when he gets brainwashed, he would be basically sent out of the ring before you know it. And Izuku would feel as if he genuinely just failed. Like, this was horrible. He really failed. He lost here and now, in which Shinso would actually go over to him and help him up, saying that he's heard about his quirk, and he's heard that it's very impressive, but he assumes that this isn't really, the place to really show it off. He tells him that he didn't have the gifts that Izuku has, but he at least has respect from him. He has his respect because, well, this is probably the first time that he actually had an advantage with his own quirk, which Izuku would nod his head and say that he doesn't have anything to really say to him. Congratulations, and do your absolute best. That's all he has to say. Izuku would walk off, but he would be frustrated, pissed off even, because he literally just lost in the first round. All of those possible sponsors, all of those possible people that would reach out for internships, gone. Just like that, because he made a dumb mistake, allowing himself to be eliminated. He feels like he's just angry, as if he's just insanely pissed off. And as he's going to the bathroom, and kind of washing his face to calm down, the lights around him would flicker, and the glass would shatter, and he could feel this kind of this anger within him that was arising without him even realizing it. He calms down, and the lights would turn back on, and he would realize that there's more to his quirk than he even imagines, and he decides to calm down, take a couple breaths, and he goes to watch the rest of the UA Sports Festival. Watching many things happen, many people, do some insane things, but he also watches Bakugo end up winning, in which Bakugo still freaks out quite a bit, believing that he didn't get his rematch with Izuku, and that he needs to prove that it doesn't matter the darkness, it doesn't matter the situation, that he is better, more powerful, and just flat out he can do things better than him. In which Izuku, well, he just watches and claps for his classmates, thinking that it was impressive. Katsuki Bakugo was very impressive for doing what he did. Now, after some time would pass, Izuku would basically be ready to figure out what internship he's going to go to. And honestly, in complete honesty, he doesn't have that many choices. Like, quite a bit of choices were completely taken off the table, especially when he was, eliminated so early. So he doesn't really have that many choices. He ends up actually just going with some kind of B-list type of hero to learn as much as possible. He straight up doesn't have like anything that he can really do, and he decides to kind of take it one day at a time. But before he actually decided on actually agreeing, to go with some B tier or D tier type of hero, he actually sees one more person. He sees that Shota Aizawa has offered him as well. Izuku immediately thinks that this is the better idea. He'll go with him, he'll learn from him, maybe train with him, whatever, and that's right there, that's what he wants to do. In which that's what he does. Signs up with Aizawa, but there's someone else that signs up as well. That is Shinso. And both of them start learning how to actually utilize Aizawa's scarf, in which, of course, Shinso would even apologize to Izuku about eliminating him, saying that if he got past him, there's a good chance he would have won the sports festival in general. Izuku shakes his head and says there's no need, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, he beat him fair and square, but they have a long way to go, especially if he wants to get into the hero side of things, in which Aizawa would say that is true, but he is making good progress, in which Izuku would nod his head, and they would be working together to learn how to use the Aizawa scarf, but also how to fight a lot better without their quirks, aka this would help him with his hand-to-hand combat and his stuff like that, which massively benefits both Izuku and also Shinso. But throughout this time, there's something happening at Hosu City, something that would not only stop all internships, but also make everyone realize how fragile their lives truly are, because when they would all, the internships would be canceled and they would all arrive back here once again, they would realize there's one seat empty, one person missing, and that person was Tenya Ida. Tenya Ida was no longer with them, no longer even alive. The hero killer ended his life before it truly began, before his hero journey truly began. And the hero killer, well, he may have been captured by Endeavor, but he now has made a mark even bigger than you could imagine. And Izuku can't even get his head around the idea of one of his classmates being gone. But they have a lot to do still. They still have to do so freaking much, and that would include the final exams. Of course, Aizawa would tell them that, yeah, they took a couple of days off to, take a breath and realize what just happened and understand what just happened. But it doesn't change the fact that they all are going to be heroes. They are all going to be on this journey to be a hero, and they need to stay on course. They need to stay on course entirely. And that, if that means they have to continue pushing forward after the death of a student and the death of a friend, then that's what that means. Izuku, well, he shakes his head, and he even says that death, well, it's not that scary. He knows it's not. He knows that there's something on that other side, that there is no such thing as eternal darkness, even though he sits in it so damn much. He knows that there's something else beyond it, and he knows that Tenya Ida is there as well, at least for the moment, in which everybody would be in shock to hear such a positive thing kind of come out of his mouth. But Izuku would say that to not worry, that they have to continue pushing forward and continuing on, because there's quite a bit to do, in which all the people would basically say, all the students would say that whatever they do is for Tenya Ida, to basically show and prove that they all could have been heroes. And Izuku, well, he prepares himself mentally for whatever this final exam is, studying, preparing, and after the written portion is all said and done, there's one more thing that needs to be dealt with. The practical will not be against robots. It will be against teachers, will be against heroes, will be against all of them. And guess what? Guess what? Izuku Midoriya will be taking on somebody, taking on, well, the number one hero, All Might, side by side with somebody who is quite obviously the opposite of what his quirk actually is and what his quirk actually has, and that is Katsuki Bakugo. How will they both work together? How will this all happen? Well, Izuku and Bakugo will have to find a way to defeat All Might side by side, even when they are complete and utter opposites and they absolutely despise each other. But with that said, that's where we're going to end part 2 of What If Deku Had a Darkness Quirk. If you enjoyed, please show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, like I said, leave all that stuff down below. Comments, likes, subs, all that good stuff. I appreciate it all. With that said, though, hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.